Yeah, see, let's talk a little bit more about cost shifting. Can you tell the Tucson voter what cost shifting is in terms of healthcare?
Well, I'm glad you asked. See, when the government puts a burden on a business, you know what, let's shift it away so it's easier for someone to understand. Let's say there's a bread company, and the government decides they're going to tax bread. Well, the bread company doesn't have to pay that tax. They have profit margins they have to maintain. They have employees they have to pay. They have to sustain rent. So what they do is they pass that tax on to the consumer. So if the government puts on a bread tax of $1 a loaf, guess what? You pay $1 a loaf more, not the company. It's the same concept with healthcare. When the government gets involved and oppresses these places, it's just like the pharmaceutical companies we already talked about. That's why drugs are so expensive. It's not because it's a bunch of big greedy people running the pharmaceutical companies. It's because the government forces them to raise their prices in order to stay in business.
What is the president was in Cairo giving a message to the Muslim world. What are your opinions of, as a former Iraq War veteran who served his country, who's had to protect both Christians and Muslims from Muslim extremists? What are your thoughts about the president's remarks?
I thought it was absolutely awful. I thought to call Iraq, even if you believe this way, and it's your right to believe this way, to call the war in Iraq a war of choice, with men and women still fighting there, is unacceptable for the commander-in-chief. Completely unacceptable. I heard a young military wife call into a radio show last night, weeping after she heard the president say that. 3 a.m. that morning, she watched her husband go off to war in Iraq. And now he has to ask himself, is this war for nothing? Is this not justified? If you're against the war, I understand that. It's your opinion. I completely respect it. As the commander-in-chief, you do not come out and question the motives or the cause of our men and women in battle. It is completely unacceptable. We are the greatest, most giving, most charitable nation in the history of the world. And apologizing to other countries for anything is unacceptable. He took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, not to lead other countries, not to be loved by the world. He owes it to us, the people who elected him, not me personally, to do us better.
Tell us a little bit, we're hearing reports from the soldiers back in the front line that their rules of engagement are being further and further restricted because they believe because the chain of command is threatening them with Article 15. Talk to us. Most of us have not served in the military. Most of us have never had to pick up a rifle. Tell us what you think our policy should be with respect to the rules of engagement and the relationship between the commander-in-chief and his soldiers that serve him.
The president needs to endear himself to the military as they are the long arm of the United States. We are able to be successful and free as we are because we have a strong military. It is the fact of life. Peace through strength is what President Ronald Reagan said. God rest his soul. We could use him now. But when you hamper our troops with rules of engagement, yes, there need to be some rules of engagement, but when you further handcuff them as a PR move, when you take away from the things they're able to do, it's not just bad press, it's not just bad for morale, it costs lives. The more oppressive the rules of engagement are, the more men and women die in combat. And that is a simple fact of life as someone who's been there.
Now, the Congress actually has, they're not, Gabrielle Giffords, of course, she stands on the Armed Services Committee. What types of, I'm sure you have a philosophy when it comes to military affairs and foreign policy. Would you kind of give us a rundown of what you would do as congressman for Tucson and Southern Arizona?
I would properly represent our nation and know that when I go abroad, when I talk to diplomats, monarchs, anybody overseas, always keep in mind that I represent America first. I represent District 8 first. Yes, I want diplomacy. Yes, we will extend a hand, but never to the detriment of anything that we represent here in the United States. It is America first, now and always, if you want to be a representative of this country.
Tell us a little bit about your personal story. It's very compelling. Tell us who you were. Where'd you go to high school? What happened after that?
Well, I was born in Ohio. My family moved us to Montana when I was 10 years old. Montana was a great place to grow up, hunting, fishing, camping, enjoying the outdoor life. Like high school, I was anxious to graduate. Once I graduated, I actually enrolled in Montana State for a year. I decided college was not for me after that year, and I just could not. I wanted to serve my country. I wanted to know what that felt like, to put on the uniform and call yourself a United States Marine. So I joined the United States Marine Corps infantry. Had 4 great years there. Made friends that I'll never ever forget. I remember sitting in my barracks room at 9/11 as terrorists slammed planes into our buildings in New York City. And I remember wanting to go to war that day. Well, we ended up going to war in Iraq, and it was my honor to serve this nation, and it was all of our honor. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
What happened once you got out of the military?
Well, once I got out, it was in August of '04. My family, actually my parents, had started a business down here in Tucson. They started in Montana before, moved it to Tucson. I decided I'd like to give the family business a try. When I got out, I moved down here, gave it a try, and liked it. It's a good job. I manage construction projects, as I said before, and it's good work. We do work kind of all over the Southwest. We're starting a project in Tucson right now that I'm managing, and it really is a good job. It keeps you in touch with everyday people. It's very nice.
It must keep you in touch with the economic situation, as construction is a major source of employment for a lot of Americans.
It certainly does. It certainly does. I'm sad to say that the amount of applications we get has quadrupled in the last couple of months alone. People are hurting, they're out of work right now, and when the economy goes bad, especially the construction industry gets hit extra hard. All the home builders right now who aren't able to build homes because no one's buying them, well, they have families to feed too. They have to keep their doors open too, so they come bid on the same projects that we bid on. A project that a year ago would have had 5 bidders, now it's 25 bidders, of everyone trying to keep the doors open, trying to hang on as long as possible till this economy recovers.
Also, no one's buying houses because there's no loans. The banks aren't lending, and the government